One part of my autistic experience that seems to show up in like every aspect and every area of my life is what I would describe as my very rigid way of thinking, my inability to be flexible in the way that I think. And this shows up in so many different parts of my life. And I made a little list here on my phone of just like some examples of my own experience with my rigidity and my autism. And I wanted to share these today and kind of talk about it, in case there's anyone else out there who can relate to these things, or in case there's anyone else who just wants to learn a little bit more about this. I'm not really sure exactly why I am so rigid with a lot of things. It is definitely an aspect of autism. There's times where it feels like I get stuck on certain things. There's times where it feels like I have to do the same thing, and it's not necessarily out of anxiety. It's more like it's just how my brain works, and there's not really any way to go around that or to change that. And I've tried for a very long time to try to change a lot of these things. And then finally getting my autism diagnosis and realizing that it's okay. This is just because of my autism, and trying to find ways to work with my rigidity instead of trying to change it altogether has been really helpful for me. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started on this list. The first thing, and probably like the most prevalent thing, is that I follow the same routine pretty much every single day. I wake up, I do my short morning routine. I'll do my work, I'll go to the gym, and I'll come home. That's what I do probably 5 or 6 days out of the week. The only time I really deviate from this routine is like if we do something what my partner and I like to call like an adventure day, where we'll go to the lake, or where we go out and do something. But other than that, like, I stick with the same routine every single day. This kind of just like creates a sense of predictability. I know what to expect. I know what the environment's going to be like. I know what the sensory challenges are going to be. And I've kind of designed my life in this way to be supportive of my autism and of my challenges. And I found that this sort of routine really helps me. And anytime I do something different than this routine, there isn't that predictability. There isn't really that sense of like, okay, I know what I'm going to be doing next. I know I'm going to have enough energy for it. And when I'm out of that, it's like, I don't know if I'm going to have enough energy for this. And then it can start to be really overwhelming. And then if there is something that does start to like disrupt this routine, whether it is like a sudden change in plans, or maybe it is something even that's planned like beforehand, where I know I won't be able to be in my routine, that's when I do start to get overwhelmed. And there's definitely like an anxiety aspect to it, where I do feel kind of anxious, but that's not all of it. And I wish I had like better words to like pinpoint exactly what it is as to why I get anxious when I'm out of my routine. But I think just my routine creates this like predictability and helps me feel soothed and comfortable in a world that often feels just like really chaotic and overwhelming as it is. And along with my routine, I also have like pre-planned rituals that I do with each part of my routine. For example, when it is time to go to the gym, I have a ritual around my gym time. I will make my pre-workout meal, which is usually the same thing every day. I'll get my pre-workout drink, I'll eat that, I'll probably watch some YouTube, I'll go to the bathroom, I'll change my clothes, I'll brush my teeth, and I'll head out to the gym. And I do that before before going to the gym every day, and that's just like one part. I do that for everything. Like I said, I follow my morning ritual. I follow my evening ritual before bed almost to a T every single day. And the next thing on my list is I eat nearly the same foods every single day. And if I'm not eating the same foods every day, I like to at least know what to expect. Like, what is my next meal going to be? Um, this is something that like I've always needed to know, like especially as a kid. I remember my therapist when I was a kid, like told my mom, okay, make sure he knows what he's going to be having for dinner each night, just to help him a little bit. And at the time, they didn't know that I was autistic, but um, that is something that definitely helped me when I was a kid. And even now, like I need to know what I'm going to be eating at each meal every single day. And for the most part, I do eat pretty much the same things every day. I start with my morning smoothie. I'll eat a protein bar. I'll eat my pre-workout meal, which is pretty much the same thing every day. After that, I'll drink my protein shake. I'll eat a little snack. And then dinner is sometimes different every day. If it were up to me, it would be the same thing every day, but I try to change it up a little bit just for my partner, so that she has something new and exciting to eat every day. But even then, I like to know what I'm going to be having. Um, and I wouldn't necessarily say I have many sensory issues around foods. I know that there are definitely some autistic people out there who do have that. That's not really my experience. For me, it's more like just knowing what I'm going to be eating. Kind of like with my routine, also predict or creates this like sort of predictability for me, and just makes it easier in this world that is always changing. The next thing on my list is I definitely have a difficult time doing new things, trying new things, stepping outside of my comfort zone. And in the past, I would definitely try to put myself out there more and step out of my comfort zone more, but it yielded like no positive returns at all for me. And this is something that I've kind of had to learn. Like a lot of like personal development and like self-help stuff says like you need to put yourself out there more and try new things. But for me, that just makes me feel even more overwhelmed, and it can definitely lead to me having like autistic shutdowns where I start to like become really overwhelmed, and a lot of it is really internalized, and I might not be able to speak, or I might be really frozen. I might like be stuck in that for maybe like 30 minutes, a few hours, or even a couple days. And just doing new things is just so overwhelming. There's just the aspect of the unknown of it. There's, again, like the sensory challenges that can come along with it. Like it's not something that I'm used to, so I don't know what to expect or how to prepare myself. There's oftentimes more socializing involved with new people, which is also really hard for me. And I have found that for me and my life and what I need and what my needs are, that it's okay if I don't do new things that often. I definitely still try to do new things if I feel like I have capacity for them. Just this past weekend, we went up to the lake and I rode on the jet skis, and this is something that was new for me and something that I have wanted to do for a while, but have been a little bit hesitant and more reserved in trying it because it was something new. It was a new place. It was a new activity. And it took me like a year to get to the point where I'm like, okay, let's go try it out. And that's just one very small example. But like for me, when I do new things, like most of the time, it's not worth the amount of energy, effort, brain capacity that I require to get through it. And I'd rather just, again, stick with what I know, stick with the things that work for me, stick with the things that I like. And that's okay for me. Some people might see that as boring or like mundane, and honestly, like if it is boring and mundane, I'm good with that. I'm totally fine with that. The next thing on my list is I struggle when plans change, even if there is a warning beforehand. I think I already touched on this when talking about my routine, but anytime there is like a plan change, it takes me a little bit of time to get grounded again, to like try to be really intentional with how I'm breathing and how I'm approaching the situation, because it does feel like a full body shock almost. And this is really hard because one of the facts of life is that things are always changing and always evolving. And I've definitely done a lot of like spiritual work and philosophical work around trying to understand this and trying to cope with this. And I have found definitely some healthy ways to cope with this and to like train my mind in a way to be okay with this change. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't come easy for me. It's an active process that I have to do every day because things are always changing. But when there is like a sudden change in plans, it feels like my nervous system is about to explode, and I have to do those intentional practices of centering myself again. The next thing on my list is I get stuck and hyperfixated on certain things, and along with this, I also like ruminate a lot, think about things on repeat a lot. Again, this can correspond to anxiety, but it's not always anxiety. For me, it's just like that's how my brain works. I think a lot of the same thoughts over and over until I really understand something. And kind of going along with this, on my list I have, it says, I can't leave things unfinished, or I can't leave something misunderstood. I always need to finish whatever task I'm on before I can move on to the next thing. Or if I'm trying to understand something, or if I'm curious about something, I need to make sure I fully understand that thing before I move on, or I like literally can't move on. My brain will continue to be stuck on that even if I remove myself from that situation, or if I try to go on to another task. I literally can't. And also along with this, my brain gets caught like in these thought loops almost. It's really hard to describe, but it gets like hyper fixated and stuck on certain things. And this can be hard also because it makes it harder to transition between tasks. It makes it harder to, when it is time to like move on, or like take a step back from my work. It can also make it pretty difficult. The next thing on my list is I don't like surprises, like at all, even if they're like gifts. And my family knows not to surprise me with things. Again, it's like it's an added demand. It's an added thing I have to expend whatever amount of energy on, trying to figure out, trying to learn, trying to change my plans to go along with it. And surprises, even if they're like gifts or if they're really nice surprises, I don't like them. And like it's hard because like if someone like surprises me with something and they're trying to be nice about it, it's hard because it like all it does is overwhelm me. The next thing on my list is I need my space to be neatly organized and clutter-free. I cannot function in a space that is cluttered. I need things to be put away exactly where they need to go. And this is also kind of like a sensory thing for me. I take in a lot of like visual of like just like the space around me. And if there's a lot of like visual noise or things in my space around me, it can also overwhelm me quite a bit, just because there's so much happening in my eyes and it's like being processed in my brain, and it's just a lot. I definitely prefer things to be neat and in their places, and when they're not, it's definitely harder for me to function, more difficult for me to focus, and I get stuck or fixated on the things that are out of place. The next thing on my list, I think I already touched on this, was I have a difficult time transitioning between tasks. And this kind of goes back to what I talked about at the beginning of the video, where I have like certain rituals around each things that I do every day. And this definitely makes it a little bit easier to make that transition between tasks. Like, for example, transitioning from doing my work to the gym, I do that ritual to help like put down my work mind and start transitioning my brain into like, okay, we're going to be doing this new task. And then like even when I start at the gym, I definitely need to do a long warm up, get in tune with my body before I can go all in. And that's just one example. The next thing on my list is I have very limited amount of interests, but this limited amount, each of them it's very intense. I would say that my special interests are definitely the gym and fitness, and that's been one like for my entire life. Same with music, and then like nature slash weather. Those are the things that make me the happiest, and my world kind of like revolves around those things. And like most other things, like they're just like meh. But those three things I love with a passion, and if that's all I could focus on in my life, it's all I would focus on. And the last thing on my list is I think very literally, and I struggle when things are left unsaid or when things are said in a passive way because I take things for what they are, and it's hard when like, of course it's hard like when people don't say what they mean, but like for me, like I take what they say as what they mean, and then I have to like manually go in my head and like think about, okay, maybe they didn't actually say what they mean, but now I'm even more confused because I have zero idea what they mean. It could be one of 100 other things that they mean. And this is also something that like makes it hard in social settings, because I feel like in our society a lot of times people don't always say what they mean, so it can make it harder to relate to other people, to understand other people, and to be understood by other people. This is definitely not an exhaustive list. I'm sure I can think of many other things, but this is just something that I came up with off the top of my head this morning on ways that rigidity shows up for me and my experience with my autism. If there are other examples you can think of in your life that you want to share, please let me know in the comments below.